All right, y'all. What's good? All right. So we got this George Not
George Not
Found
Found
video
is
by Internet Anarchist. I think I know what this situation. I know what this is about, but I want to see what else it has to say. And I've been interested to watch this, and I just haven't gotten around to react to it. So we're gonna go ahead react to it while eating some chicken. Specifically, hold on. Specifically, chicken from Sylvester's. And actually, give me a couple minutes to set something up. Now let's get to watching it.
GeorgeNotFound has had one of the most successful careers in the Minecraft community, with over 10 million subscribers, dozens of viral uploads, and connections with some of the most influential creators in that space.
Coming in for the hug. No way! We did it! Yeah!
However, in only a few weeks, George's once promising career has slipped through his fingers, along with hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And all it took was one video and a horrible response that toppled his empire.
It pissed me off that they can hide behind their power while victims are left helpless, no matter what scenario.
Hi, I'm the Internet Anarchist. I create weekly YouTube documentaries, and today we'll be diving into the tragic downfall of GeorgeNotFound and the allegations in response that may or may not have ruined his entire career. On the 9th of March 2024, a Twitch streamer by the name of Bugs would go live on Twitch to share a harrowing experience with her viewers.
Last year, at the beginning of summer, I was assaulted by a significantly older and popular content creator.
Katie explained that the incident occurred in a hotel room after a convention she attended with a few of her friends, and that the assaulter was best friends with a famous creator dating one of Katie's friends.
One night, we were at a house party when we decided to leave. It was me, my best friend, and her other friend. This other friend was romantically talking to a really big creator at the time. He was also the best friend of my soon-to-be assaulter.
A day later, Katie and her friend group found themselves going back to the hotel room after getting drunk at a party a few hours prior. According to Katie, they were offered even more drinking and were obliged to participate in various drinking games.
There was more alcohol in the room, and we were encouraged to drink some more as they offered the bottles to us. They said they would join us in drinking and insisted on drinking games, and already drunk, I obviously complied.
According to Katie's account, the creator sitting beside her would unexpectedly begin touching her while disguising it as a game of tickling her.
Out of nowhere, I felt him slip his hand under my clothes, sitting next to me on the couch in front of everyone. He disguised it with a simple, "Are you ticklish?" I coughed out a no, still staring at my phone.
Katie described the situation as so terrifying that she couldn't move, only being able to escape after several long minutes.
Stayed there for a while, hoping my stillness could make me disappear. I eventually had to stand up after many minutes for it to stop.
According to Katie, once the night was over, she took her chance to leave, but the unnamed creator would insist on escorting her to her room, something that Katie claimed she was very uncomfortable with.
We walked to the elevators, where I didn't get on. He then pretended that the elevator was broken and that he couldn't leave, telling me to get in the elevator to prove it was broken. And then after a few minutes, he ended the night with a "guess I'm going now," leaving with a wounded puppy look.
Immediately after the stream ended, YouTube and Twitter would be set ablaze, with speculation as to who exactly Katie was talking about, with a Twitter detective sharing the evidence. 1. It was VidCon Anaheim 2023. 2. The person was 26. 3. The person went to college. 4. It was a big content creator. 5. When she made the joke about content creators being in minors' DMs, she mentioned that half the people had the assaulter as their profile picture. The tweet would go on to narrow down the suspected creator even further, reading, "Her best friend was romantically talking to the content creator's best friend, and they went to a hotel together as a group." This would be referencing the party that had gotten Dream into some dirt about giving underage people alcohol. And it didn't take long for them to narrow it down to Dream's friend group, and eventually, GeorgeNotFound. These revelations prompted a response from George stating, "I'll be doing a very serious stream later today. This post is just to make that clear. I am gathering all the information and evidence to share. I have never and would never break someone's boundaries or assault anyone." However, simply confirming that he was involved in the situation was enough for the legions of users on Twitter to attack George and conclude that he was guilty, with replies reading, quote, "I'm gathering all the information," unquote, equals waiting for the AI-generated PR response. "You are the exact reason she was scared to say anything. I stand with the victim." as well as, oh screw you, there is nothing that can make it consensual. 1, she never said yes anyways, and 2, you got her drunk, illegally I might add, to a point well beyond her ability to consent, because in case you forgot, intoxicated people can't consent.
But wait, if she was already, wait. So if she was, but was she underage drinking beforehand? So did he get, so she was already, no, I gotta just continue. Because
we're even hoping that George would commit self-termination. It's important to remember that Katie had only presented allegations in her stream and provided almost no evidence to support her claims of assault. Users like Keemstar picked up on this observation and reminded everyone about a tweet he made years ago on how quickly accusations spread in the Minecraft community. George had one chance to redeem his name, and if he didn't accurately present his case, then the hate he'd already faced would only be the tip of the iceberg. Before George could release his side of the story, Katie would reply with a tweet meant to condemn him even further, reading, "Pull whatever you can find. I also have screen recorded everything. I plan on using it to support my case if needed, but please share it on my behalf if you'd like. That's why I can sleep at night without scrambling for screenshots to try and twist. I've been waiting so long to say this, but you're a f***ing coward." At this point, George had only...
I get it. I understand. It's hard for a victim to come out. But I feel like at this point, if this is serious, you need to present something. Because of this allegations from a stream, and this guy's just getting hammered. He's trying to say he's about to come out with evidence. You rebuttal by saying you also have evidence. But you don't present it. You say you have the screen recordings, but you don't put them there. Like, who was it? Like, there was literally this girl talking about some I'm exposing Ice Spice. It sounded like complete bullshit and crazy. But she still put screenshots, so it was like, do you understand what I'm saying? I feel like I can't believe something without actually seeing a screenshot or screen recording. We can take this. It's like we can put this in motion, but we cannot determine anything else until I can't determine anything else until I see the evidence. So let's see if the screenshots
he expressed that he wanted to share his side of the story, but Katie and others seemingly didn't want to hear him out, jumping to the conclusion that he was going to lie. Another point worth noting is the fact that Katie stated she has evidence to support her claims, but didn't bother sharing any of it with viewers when making her accusations. This implies that there are details of the story that Katie kept hidden, details that George was about to blow wide open.
Recently, a streamer named Katiebugs went live and told a story involving me about sexual assault. So in this stream, I'm going to be addressing it.
George would go on to explain what happened during his 2 interactions with Katie and her friends, starting with their first meetup at Dream's hotel.
The first night that I actually met Katie, I was with Dream in his hotel room, and Dream was in a group chat with 5 other people. These 5 people included Katiebugs, her best friend, and 3 other of her friends. Now, these 5 people, they're at an official VidCon after party, and they wanted Dream to go meet up with them and hang out with them.
According to George, the 2 groups' first night together was spent playing drinking games and conversing as usual. He also made a note of Katie's claims about flirting and that their age difference made her uncomfortable.
My perspective of things is that I am with people that are over the age of 21 in a scenario where we are doing things that people that are over the age of 21 are doing, like drinking.
He even presented a photo that supposedly showed she had a 21 and over wristband on, which further supported his point about assuming they were all drinking age. Moving on to their second gathering, George revealed that there weren't just 5 people in the hotel that night, but 8, which contradicts Katie's version of events.
So this time, their friends were actually all able to get in. I don't know how they did it, but Katie, her best friend, and 3 other of her friends ended up coming to the room, which had me, Dream, and my online friend that I just met. So 8 people total in this room at this point.
Along with this, George provided screenshots showing that Katie and her friends had expressed a desire to be there, with texts reading, "Cool, sounds splendid to me. Good shit. Okay. My goat. Another contradiction to Katie's allegations was George stating her and her group had already been drinking at another party before meeting up with George's group.
Another thing that she talks about is how we insisted that she drinks more and that we insisted on playing drinking games when this isn't the case. Again, they had already been drinking at this party before they arrived to the hotel room, and they had also been the ones that were asking to play the drinking games.
Looking back at how Katie framed her story, it was as if Dream and George were the ones who initiated both the meetup and the alcohol consumption, when, according to George, it was actually the other way around. However, these weren't the only discrepancies in their accounts of what happened, as George mentioned that she behaved positively throughout the night, with no signs of discomfort.
She also says, looking back on the scenario, that she confused her nerves for excitement when I sit next to her. But again, at this moment in time, everything was friendly, nothing sexual had happened. I'm just literally sitting next to her on the couch.
As well as stating that the mobile game that she claimed to resort to was a point of focus for everyone in the room.
She's implying that she is using her phone to essentially escape, such an awkward scenario that she's in. That's just not how it happened. And this is why. She brought up the phone game as kind of a point. The game was honestly the central point of the interaction at this part of the night.
George continued by explaining what took place on the couch they were sitting on, and it wasn't anything close to Katie's representation.
During this, me and Katie were at the far end of the couch and we were cuddling together. We had been cuddling for, I'd say, around an hour at this point, playing the game, talking, and just having fun. And for clarity, I had my hand around her waist above her clothes.
Regarding Katie's most critical accusation, George had this to say.
As I mentioned before, we had previously been cuddling on this couch for around an hour, but I did place my hand on her waist under her shirt. The way it's phrased makes it sound like it just happened out of nowhere, when in reality we had been cuddling for over an hour at this point, and it was not out of nowhere.
On the topic of consent, George remarked that he'd always been cautious about it, and that their interaction went no further than under the shirt touching.
I've always been overly cautious with consent, and this is not just because I'm a creator. I've been like this since before I was a creator, and I think that's just the way I am and just the way it should be.
While no definite verbal consent was given, non-verbal consent was clearly at play, and according to criminal law, it was still covered by the mistake of fact as to consent, which states, a mistake of fact defense is available in cases where the defendant honestly believed that he or she had consent to engage in sexual conduct. The lack of resistance can lead to a reasonable belief that the alleged victim consented in a crime case. However, the mistake as to a lack of a consent in a case must be honest and objectively reasonable, unquote. If what George is saying is true, then it would have been reasonable to assume non-verbal consent.
She also says how, quote, I didn't speak or move. I remember being afraid to even breathe. I stayed there for a while, hoping my stillness could make me disappear. Now, to reiterate, anytime that I did this, it was met with her either smiling, laughing, play fighting with me, and there was no reason for me to believe that she was uncomfortable with it.
Finally, George would recount the closing events of the night.
What actually happened is Dream had decided he was too tired and was going to bed. So the night was over and we all left. She then goes on to tell a story about the elevator and how I joked about it being broken to try get her to go in with me. So Katie actually had her own hotel room on the same floor as Dream. So she actually didn't have to take the elevator.
Although the pair would continue to message each other afterwards, communications would stop after a few weeks. To close out the stream, George would speculate as to why Katie had accused him of assault.
I don't think she's purposefully being malicious or trying to hurt me or ruin my career or anything like that. What I do think is that she is surrounded by a friend group that completely despises me and my friend group.
When comparing Katie and George's accounts of what happened that night in Dream's hotel room, you'll notice 7 key differences. 1. The reason Katie and her friends went to Dream's room in the first place. 2. Who initiated the drinking upon arriving at the hotel. 3. The number of people that were present at the time. 4. Whether or not George knew her age prior to cuddling with her. 5. Whether Katie's outward responses to George's advances were negative or positive. 6. The claims of Katie returning to him on the couch multiple times. And 7. Whether the claims of the mobile game they were playing was an escape for Katie or a general source for entertainment for everyone present. Depending on how these details were framed, you'd either see what happened that night as a predatory incident or a bunch of creators having fun after a stressful convention. Speaking of predatory, Katie stated that she was freshly 18 multiple times in her accusatory stream.
I was freshly 18 and had just graduated high school a few weeks prior.
However, Katie's 18th birthday was on the 2nd of January 2023, while the VidCon Anaheim convention took place on the 21st of June 2023, which puts her over 5 months into being a legal adult. Katie's wording about being freshly 18 must have been deliberately chosen since she had written her statement beforehand. In addition, if George's statements were true, then that would mean Katie intentionally left out important details. This would end up being the case when Dream released his response to the controversy on Reddit a few hours after George's stream, reading, "Based on hearing both recounts of stories, being there myself, and talking to everyone that was there afterwards, George's recounting of events is much closer to what actually took place. Although I did not know that any sexual touching had taken place, I can say for a matter of fact that their interactions were extremely positive throughout the night, and she had many opportunities of separation." While Dream would later take down this post, he would confirm George's claims that Katie was part of a friend group that held deep grudges against them, reading, "I will agree with George in saying that there is a group of content creators that have a very large hatred for me and the Dream Team. Multiple of these content creators have spread lies about me and take any opportunity they can to spread negative rumors. Katie is not one of them, to be clear, but she is friends with many of them," unquote. Immediately after Dream and George released their statements on what they believe truly happened, Katie would take to Twitter to drop a 10-page document to counter their claims. However, it only brought more questions than answers.
Of course.
She started the doc by countering George's points about consent being non-verbal. Specifically, she made a point about the lack of verbal consent equaling no consent, reading, "He admitted to touching me, that I was drunk, that I verbally didn't consent. In my mind, the conversation is over," unquote. Right off the bat, Katie was trying to invalidate George's account by limiting the discussion to solely verbal consent and ignoring the several other signs that she supposedly gave at the time. I'm sure looking back, George wishes he could have quit from the situation. However, that's not the only thing our generation needs to be quitting. Say goodbye to your bad habits a delightful way with today's sponsor, The Fume, the award-winning device that's all natural. At the start, I wasn't sure what to think about it, but after trying the maple peppercore for the first time, I was completely
I don't know who these people are, but they ain't sponsoring me.
didn't admit to information when she initially said, "Let's get back into the video." Katie then goes on to admit that she withheld information when she initially presented her allegation, and only planned on using it if he didn't admit to touching her. This means that Katie knew people on the internet would figure out that she was talking about George, and she wanted him to face the consequences of people who heard her story. In her address to George's stream, Katie attempted to discredit the evidence he presented by stating it was from a group chat he wasn't involved in, and by remarking that the game wasn't relevant, despite the fact she claimed to use it as an escape in her allegation. Katie continues by explaining why she returned to the hotel the second time, stating, "I heard of a different creator who was in the room I wanted to meet," a detail she claims to have forgotten while presenting the serious accusations. After relaying some of the messages between them, Katie would then admit to leaving out key information in the form of not mentioning George's other friend who was present, but she justified it by saying, quote, "He left early, which is why I didn't mention him. He left before anything really happened." However, Katie claims that he sent a message to someone who was also present, which read, quote, "I'm currently watching George 26 cuddle with Katie 18, unquote. Another admission from Katie that she indeed cuddled George, and while he initiated most of it, she would be the one to start a few herself. Reading, "A lot of the cuddling he may have felt was personal, but was just me being drunk." The next point was why Katie didn't move if she felt uncomfortable. According to Katie, she returned to the sofa because, quote, "Even if I were to move, that would be an obvious hit to his ego, to him, and everyone in the room. A bold move I didn't need to make," unquote. For the rest of the document, Katie continued to invalidate the nonverbal.
What? Wait. It was a hit to his ego and a hit to his ego to him and everyone in the room, a bold move I didn't need to make. It is a move you do need to make if you are uncomfortable in the situation. Maybe, am I overthinking this, or am I just, I don't know why that gets me mad, because it's like, you're saying you're doing the opposite of what you actually need to do, but you're doing what you actually want to do, supposedly. And this is just me. This is just kind of showing that that's not what happened. Oh my goodness. I don't, like, false allegations make me mad, man. Like, the Jonathan Major shit pissed me off. Johnny Depp, the Johnny Depp Amber Heard shit pissed me off. This is gonna piss me off if something doesn't switch me up right now. If something does not present to me that this is all, that everything she's saying is true, then I'm gonna be pissed. That's it.
To make, unquote. For the rest of the document, Katie continued to invalidate the nonverbal cues that George noticed by either stating that it was due to nerves, being drunk, or that she intentionally used them to hide a supposed discomfort. Reading, I was chilling in the moment because I was drunk. I don't know. I know I have to ponder on it. Finally, Katie would acknowledge that her friend group had already hated Dream and George by stating, her friends influenced her because they hate us. I wonder why. The hatred grew because of what happened to me, unquote. The story presented in her latest response drastically differs from what she presented in her initial allegations. At first, she made it seem like she'd given clear signs of discomfort, but was framing her story to include her hiding her discomfort. This is a massive departure from what she initially brought forward, and there are a lot of unanswered questions that came with it. Why does she frame the situation as more predatory than it actually was? How does she overlook so many crucial details in her allegations? And why would she switch from saying that she was visibly uncomfortable to claiming she was intentionally keeping it hidden but expected George to pick up on it? However, these questions would go unanswered, as dozens of users on Twitter would fixate on the lack of verbal consent and proceed to pass judgment on George, with tweets reading, "Am I missing something? If George himself confirmed he inappropriately touched her, what's left to discuss?" As well as this, "He was irresponsible as a content creator with a huge platform and an adult in general. She was a visibly young, drunk teenager who he didn't know that never clearly consented to anything. That's confirmed information, and now he is here trying to question if clear consent is necessary." As well as, the new discussion is whether or not a drunk 18-year-old can consent without explicitly saying so, to which the answer is obviously no, they cannot, and touching them in a sexual manner without said consent is assault. People were more likely to believe Katie's story and not question it as much as they did with George's side. Because of this, George felt pressured to make a tweet that ended up making things even worse for him. On the 12th of March 2024, George released a Twitter post that would prove to be his biggest mistake, an apology to appeal to all the negativity that he was receiving. Quote, "Since reading Katie's newest post, my perspective on that night and my overall conclusion has massively changed as she introduced new information that I was not aware of at all before. I have much more I will say, but for now, Katie, I am sorry. I am so sorry." Unquote. Whether George realized it or not, simply admitting to any form of wrongdoing was enough for everyone who thought that he was guilty of the assault to justify their conclusions. This was only made worse by the statements of his two closest friends, Sapnap and Dream, both opting to side with Katie. In his Twitter post, Sapnap writes, "I don't think that George is a bad person. I don't think that he had evil intentions. But it doesn't matter if your actions caused pain. Please give all your love and support to Katie as she deserves it." Unquote. While Dream would create a Twitter space in which he further disavowed his friend.
I do not think that George is a bad person. I do not think that George was sitting there thinking, oh, she's not gonna like this, or, anything. I think that he did something fucked up. I think that what happened was fucked up. I think that it was terrible. And I think that I feel terrible for any involvement that I had, and I feel terrible for Katie. It is a terrible situation. It is a terrible thing, the pain that she feels, and there's nothing that I can do to change that. There's nothing that George can do to change that. And that's fucked up. That is incredibly fucked up.
By the 16th of March 2024, George would upload his second response to the allegations. And while he made some critical clarifications in the video, he also made some avoidable mistakes.
For those of you who don't know, Katie Boggs recently did a stream and accused me of something very serious. I made a response and then she made a follow-up response. This is my response to her follow-up. Throughout this video, I'm going to be showing clips from some other people just for context. And just to make it clear, I don't want any hate to be sent to anyone, including these.
Following this, George would comment on various aspects of Katie's post, like the drinking game, the reason she wanted to come to the hotel, and their messages afterwards.
Next, she shows our Instagram DMs, and she said that a reason she kept messaging me in a friendly way for a while after this whole thing happened was because, and this is a quote, she felt lucky to be talking to a verified account someone famous, someone I had followed and watched for a while. Now, this is not something that I was thinking about at all. I wasn't aware that she ever watched my content in the past. That was never brought up. This actually makes me feel pretty bad. The only reason she was messaging me was because I have subscribers or something. I would never want that. Again, the only reason I actually brought up us messaging after the fact was to show that we were still friendly afterwards and that I didn't know that she was uncomfortable at the time. She also confirms that we did talk on Snapchat, like I said, but also that nothing really happened there either.
However, George would point out another striking mistake in Katie's post.
Oh?
It actually agrees with me that she didn't mention my online.
Oh, wait, when he says mistakes, I thought he was saying George made mistakes. But he's saying there were mistakes in Katie's dot. Okay.
Line friend that I just met.
Okay. But even if George made mistakes, I would have still been like, damn, he should have done that. And at the end of the day, what happened happened, but it's, oh my goodness. Now it's just Twitter, bro. This is all just Twitter.
Early, and she didn't even know his name. And she shows a text message that she says is from him from the night where this happened, where he says this. Obviously, this is implying that he was kind of uncomfortable with what was happening, and also that he knew her age, despite just meeting her. And when I first saw this, this actually majorly changed my perspective on the night, because that would mean that my friend was also uncomfortable and somehow knew her age when I didn't. And even though she said that he left early, my memory of it was actually that he was the last to leave, just before me and Katie left. Dream also came to me and mentioned that this changed his perspective of the night as well, because that would mean that he was essentially the only person that wasn't uncomfortable.
This prompted George to call his friend to clarify things, and what he said would only poke more holes in Katie's post.
There is a text that is claimed to be from you.
Yeah, I didn't send that text. I found out about it when you sent it to me. But yeah, no, that wasn't me. I don't know where they got that from. I didn't ask them for any of their phone numbers or anything like that.
He continued by giving his observation of what happened that night.
I didn't really notice anything out of the ordinary. I didn't really notice any like bad vibes or anything like that. It was a little playful, maybe a little flirty. I noticed you guys were just kind of like playing with each other and just like kind of cuddled up a little bit on the couch. So it definitely didn't seem like she was like uncomfortable, you know? I don't know, it seemed like everybody that was there was having a good time, because I mean, we were there pretty late, so I don't really follow like this internet stuff like that, so I'm not up to date with what's going on online. The way she was explaining everything, I mean, at least to me, like it was not like that at all. To me, it kind of seems like a misunderstanding. There wasn't really a thought in my mind that like, oh, this girl like could be in some sort of danger, or she's being like preyed on or anything like that. Because yeah, even though George is my friend, if I noticed him doing anything that I wouldn't want someone I'm friends with to do, then I would, you know, I either would say something about it or not be a part of that situation.
I was gonna say, if the text supposedly came from him, and he knew about her age, then like, why didn't he go to George and just like, yo, don't stop. I honestly do not think, no, like, is that not something you do? If you think your friend is bugging in that situation, I'm straight up saying it. If you think your friend is bugging or just fucked for doing that, are you not gonna go like, yo, no, cut that shit? Like, cut, over, out, you're done. Like, no. Is that not something you do? So if his friend knew the age, and she said he seemed like he was uncomfortable, why wouldn't he tell George? If that was also George's friend. And then he's talking about he doesn't follow the internet stuff. This isn't even this. That probably wasn't even a content creator. That was probably one of his friends, bro. Like, I'm sorry. Like, when evidence doesn't line up, it legit pisses me off.
Dream questioned her about the screenshotted message. She claimed it was an error and that the message was from another girl that was at the hotel. With what we know now, that seems highly unlikely. After that, he remarked on when he left the hotel, and it was far from early.
She says that you left early on in the night. Could you talk about that?
I think around like 3 or 3:30. I went.
Oh, that's not early.
I think I got the party pack or something. For some reason, I couldn't believe I actually went and got tacos. I know for a fact that I got the tacos like extremely late. Like I had to go in their drive-thru even though I wasn't in a car. Like I had to walk through their drive-thru and like order through their speaker. That was fun. I know I left at 5 or very close to that time because right after 5, I texted Dream that I left open the deadbolt on his door. Right after I left, I texted him that to let him know. I think that was at like 5. Yeah.
Another unmistakable hole in Katie's post was that her friends had shown apprehension towards her and George's interactions. But when Dream had questioned about it months prior, they said everything was fine.
I had no idea as well that anyone was uncomfortable and assumed that this tweet was implying Katie was uncomfortable with Dream. He reached out to Ghosty about it, asking what this was even about, and did the same to others, including Katie. Now, I'm not going to be showing Katie's text with Dream because at the time Dream had told her that her messages and conversation would not leave their texts. However, here is Dream and Ghosty's conversation about it. I was never brought up or mentioned at all. And also, when Dream makes fun of Harry for being ridiculous and making stuff up because nothing happened and we were all still friends.
George then included a clip of Katie's friend Ghosty addressing what she said in Dream's DMs.
The only time that we had a conversation about anything that had to do with that night was obviously when the stuff with Harry happened. And he texted me asking if it seemed like anything had happened. And I, at the time, said no, because the conversation was not about George. The conversation was about him. And it was about the underage drinking. And it wasn't ever about whether or not Katie, you know, it was always just about him and not George, which is why I said, dude, no, nothing seemed wrong, because he wasn't doing anything wrong, and I can stand by that. I will stand by that comment, and I said that in one of my posts that, you know, like it wasn't him. That was our conversation. It was never about George. It was about him and the Harry situation.
Now there were two major misrepresentations in Katie's previous post that painted George in a very negative light and fueled negativity towards him. Despite the fact it doesn't make sense for George to know he made Katie uncomfortable, both when it happened and in the months prior, he still apologized to her again at the end of the video.
The level of intimacy that we had together was the furthest that she'd experienced, but to me, it was quite tame. And when I say this, I am not trying to devalue how she feels about this at all. I'm just trying to point out that we clearly viewed things differently. And this is something that I have learned from now, and I will be taking very seriously moving forward. And I am truly sorry, Katie, for not realizing this and not taking this difference into account. It is clearly something that is extremely important to you, and I'm sorry. Even after everything I've just said, things would be very different if I could just say that I had asked her if she was comfortable and she had said yes. But the fact is, I never did ask this. As I mentioned, there were a lot of things that she said she thought that I wasn't aware of, that if I had known would have changed a lot. And going forward, this will be something that I take into account in every interaction I have with anyone, sexual or not. I am sorry, Katie, and I'm sorry for how this will affect you going forward. And I'm sorry that everything got to this point. But I just hope that after hearing my perspective, you can understand that I never had any bad intentions and never meant to hurt you.
Unfortunately, Katie wouldn't share this perspective, as she'd go live on the 24th of March 2024 in an attempt to not just debunk George's story, but pile on with new allegations.
One biggest thing that I want to clear up, it is fucking sexual assault, okay? I'm not gonna apologize, say that it isn't sexual assault, that I'm not a sexual assault victim. The touching that he has admitted to many times, this touching that he admitted to not asking or getting my consent before he did, he felt up my tits on a couch with other people there. He stuck his hand up my shirt, under my bra, and felt up, fondled, whatever you want to say. He felt up my tits. Unwanted sexual touch is literally in the definition of sexual assault. It's fucking sexual assault, and I'm never gonna apologize for saying it is, okay?
Where was this before?
Fake allegations. It's not fake allegations. I'm not a
No one
liar.
said.
Quite literally, the thing that I was talking about is my sexual assault. And that's the one thing he confirmed. He can sit there.
Should spend the next hour backtracking many misrepresented claims from her previous post, aggressively calling George an assaulter and accusing him of things she had never brought up before. No
Right.
matter how you look at it, there was an air of malice in how Katie misrepresented every instance of allegations and changed parts of it when they were proved to be false or exaggerated. Unfortunately for her, people would pick up on this and rightfully call her out for it. With tweets reading, GeorgeNotFound's accuser Katie is back changing her story again because apparently George now, quote, felt up her Seems like a really big detail to leave out of your first two attempts to paint George out as a sexual assaulter. She seems
So what? Listen, wait. Because in the original video, you could say it was interpreted when she said hand ran up her shirt. Okay, but it wasn't mentioned in detail in the 10-page document.
quite happy to be accusing and changing her stories. Nothing about her is honest. She's an insult to real victims, as well as, I actually can't with the way she has described this. The follow account up on screen, the language she used in the initial story, the hate she's coming with now. This cancelling of GeorgeNotFound has got to be one of the worst online mob trials that I've witnessed in a long time. Absolute embarrassment to good work feminism has done in the past to legitimizing victims. For the first time since Katie started campaigning against George, people had finally taken note of just how much she was altering her story to make him look as predatory as possible, and should respond to this by deleting everything. Katie removed all trace of George from her Twitch account, privated her Twitter account, and disabled comments on her YouTube channel, all in a bid to mitigate the backlash she rightfully deserved. Even though Katie's allegations were proved to be blown out of proportion, they will forever leave a scar on George's career. He's lost hundreds of thousands of subscribers, had a collaboration with Mr. Beast cancelled, and possibly lost any chance at attending future creator conventions, not to mention the dozens of creators that jumped at the opportunity to slander his name. However, it's worth noting that George also played a role in his downfall when he decided to bend the knee to Katie and her fellow accusers. Looking at his channel metrics now, it's unclear if George will ever truly recover from this. But what we do know is that he'll be left alone to rebuild his dying platform. Another Minecraft YouTuber who had his career destroyed by allegations was Wilbur Soot.
I mean, look. Like, there was no way around it, to be honest. I felt like if he didn't apologize, and in this case, if he didn't apologize, that was probably him realizing, oh shoot, this is not what I thought it was. This is a completely different. Hold on, I did do something. He sees, hold on, maybe he did do something fucked up. So he's like, you know what? I'll admit it. And while admitting it kind of made it worse, I felt like not admitting it would have made it way worse, because damn well people will go, ooh, because it's either A, he admitted to doing what was initially said. However, it was the way he interpreted it. It was different, all that. Or B, he didn't. People say he's lying, and it's way worse. It's way worse if people think you are lying than like if you say the truth and it turns out what actually happened was completely blown out of proportion. Like it, I honestly don't think she would have gotten caught up if he didn't apologize. Did it seem kind of fucked in the end? Yeah, but again, he didn't do what she said she did. He admitted to what he did. He admitted to what he perceived. He apologized for it. They'll work better on in the future. What more can a man do? Anyway, That's Internet Anarchist, how GeorgeNotFound lost his entire audience in 1 month. Go support the original video. Like this video if you liked it. If you came here from another video, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.
Diamonds, he hang from the back cave. Numbers, they running my cash like a math game. I got the ring that we sharing her last name. She said the diamonds on Cascade. She left her hand in them hoes, see the flashbang. I walk around with a black blade, candles lit. Why so dark? 'Cause it's black flame. You was running on a trip on the low. Change styles, but I